Cover us
Okay.
legally so we don't have to like pay out the wazoo.
Oh no, I've barely got a wazoo.
Oh, mine's huge these days.
Yeah, I've heard. I have seen it written on some toilet stalls for a good time called Dan's huge wazoo. Maybe that's both of our problems. Is that we're conflating author life and personal life.
Let's not examine that further. And for people listening, if things sound a little offbeat this week, we're both very, very exhausted.
Activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behavior. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. What is up, activators, and welcome back to another episode of the Activated Authors Podcast with myself, Daniel Willcocks, and the immemorable.
Immemorable?
I don't know. I'm running out of adjectives.
Doesn't immemorable mean forgettable?
Oh no, that's not what we want. Well, I was going to go for incomparable, but I was like, I did incomparable last week. So, I'm trying to think of a good adjective.
Well, I mean, for the person
sensational, Samantha Frost.
Hi.
How's it going, Sam?
Fine. I was going better before I got told I was forgettable.
Immemorable. I've got to Google that now, just because, for my own sake, otherwise it's going to kill me. Immemorable, meaning that cannot be remembered or has been forgotten. Whose origins are okay. Yeah, I apologize. It's Halloween, so it fits with a kind of haunted.
Oh yes, happy Halloween.
Yeah, let me twist that round into making that somewhat better. So, how was your week been, Sam?
It's been all right. Been a bit just trying to figure stuff out, generally. But yeah, mostly it's half term, so like mostly
vortex.
Huh?
The vortex.
Yeah, basically. So that's pretty much how my week's been. What about you?
Somewhat similar. So last week I think I mentioned I was like I mentioned I was in burnout, heading into burnout. I am full blown in burnout at the minute. So like I am keeping to the things that I know need to be done. And then in spare pockets of time that I have, although obviously I also have the sprog because it is half term, hence why there might be a little bit of background noise because you got to find distractions somehow.
I'm using my sister.
Oh, smart. Mine lives like 100 miles away, so I don't
plan in advance. But
yeah. But yeah, so I am just full blown in burnout at the minute and doing a lot of like just reviewing how to. I think we spoke about this a bit last week about shedding your skin and metamorphoses and all that kind of stuff. And every few months, like this is definitely like a pattern I've noticed on myself. Like it'll ease up. Like it's very. I think I've compared it before to like an accordion. Like it very much like load stuff on, shrink it, load stuff on, shrink it. So just trying to figure that out and putting in some new systems and things and re-looking at what my priorities are so I can kind of help myself get through it. But I mean, luckily I'm keeping on top of stuff. And there are things in the works and things are moving, but it's just I think similarly to a bit like you, that it's like alignment that needs to happen with a couple of things. So yeah, all that fun. So in terms of here we go. One key takeaway from this week. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, because again, vortex.
KFC. I'll just pick a different one each week.
Oh no.
I'm
trying to get sponsored by fast food companies. Is this now a thing that's happening?
I'd love that.
Although takeaway of the week.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Just eat.
Although I don't think that's very activated authorsy.
Not really.
No. My key takeaway is just trying to think how to say this without like diving too deep into stuff that I'm not fully comfortable sharing on the podcast, but just like I think remembering that there's a personal life. Because I am in a position in which I do work a lot. Like I live by myself. I try and like keep on top of things. I've got a lot of irons in the fire, and so I'm just trying to work on that. Remember that I've still got little ones and family and all that kind of stuff to see and to have fun. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah. Personal life. Sorry. Just I'm like, yeah, supposed to have one of those, aren't you? I think for me, I would have to say that my mental health needs to come before anything else, no matter the consequences. Like, I need to prioritize that.
Gotcha. Our win from the community this week is Emmy B, who says that she bought herself a volleyball and is starting to remember just how much she loves playing it. It's also one of the only activities other than running where the brain shuts up, so it's nice. And also that her dad built her a door in time for Nano, meaning less familial distractions.
I'm sorry. What? That last bit again, please.
Built a door. So my assumption here is that there isn't a door on the room in which Emmy works, and so a door has been built.
Okay.
Rather than in times of frustration during Nano, she's got a door to thwack someone with.
It's just like, I'm so confused by the door.
Yeah, I think it's adorable.
No.
Hey, oh, sorry, I won't hinge any more jokes on that.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm such a knob. Right. I could do this for days. But I won't. Right. So into this week's question.
You are a knob.
Hey.
I just agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all jammed up. Right. So
we could just no, I've got nothing. I was doing the thing where I was like, if I start it, something will come into my head. And it didn't.
Yeah. If there's and for people listening, if things sound a little offbeat this week, we're both very, very exhausted.
Yeah.
So we're doing our best, but again, like half terming and all that kind of jazz it takes its toll. So yeah. we're doing our best. Forgive us. So this week's question, we're going to dive into. Actually, before I get into that, I don't actually think we've kind of spoken about the main categories with which we're picking these questions from.
No, I think you're right on the fact that we haven't.
Yeah. So
maybe they're memorable.
I know. You dick.
Oh, that's not going anywhere.
So before we started going through all these question segments and looking at what we're going to do, we basically split up what we determine as the author experience, as it were, into 4 main categories. Those being testing off the top of my head now, the author life. So, it goes into mindset, it goes into how to live as an author, sort of separate from actually wording and doing that kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
We've got storycraft or story theory, which is, covering anything from structures and genres and world building and grammar and all those kind of bits.
Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying this. You go.
Well, I was going to ask you what the other 2 are.
No, it's fine.
We've got writing the book, which is obviously, the mechanics of getting your fingers to the keyboard, writing the book, and kind of the logistics of making all of your planning appear on the page. And then we've got the business of publishing, which covers everything from finance, marketing, the actual publication side of things, editing, all those kind of things. So we've got those 4 sections. And this week, go on.
I feel like you missed something.
Go on.
You missed personal life.
The author life.
Author life. That's author life. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of covers that as well. That kind of the enjoyment side of things, and just
maybe that's both of our problems.
Is
that we're conflating author life and personal life.
Let's not examine that further. So today we're going to be looking into the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And as we kind of approach all of these different topics, we probably best to start right near the top. So the question for today is, when do I start my author business? Which I know is a real point of thought and contention for some people, because there comes a point in which, I believe that most people get into writing through the passion, through the creativity, through some kind of urge inside you to create and to make magic and to tell whatever stories you want to tell. When you start writing, there's not really a thought originally about how to turn it into a business. I mean, that might kind of somewhere be lingering there, but as you begin to write, as you begin to learn, you're not really at that point of like, I need to establish an LLC and I need to make all of this, a real logistical sound operation.
Yeah.
And I will say, just sort of at the top of this bit, caveat, we are not business experts. We are not financial experts. We are not financial experts. So
no,
I speak from a point of setting up a business and having run this for a few years. Sam has officially started her business now. Congrats.
Thank you.
But yes, by all means, please speak to experts. And, you know, when you're listening to this, some of this advice may be outdated. So look for current advice on this.
Yeah.
Although, as we're publishing this is brand new. So enjoy. So
I'm not entirely sure what's happening, but okay.
that's my caveat. That's all my things. Just to
Okay,
cover us
okay.
legally so we don't have to like pay out the wazoo.
Oh no, I've barely got a wazoo.
Oh, mine's huge these days.
Yeah, I've heard. I have seen it written on some toilet stalls for a good time called Dan's Huge Wazoo.
I feel like the word dumpster fire is coming into my head.
Oh,
Right. So working through these points.
yeah.
So when do you start your author business? When you officially start it? Because again, there's a real sort of unknown abstract quality around when you turn from sort of hobby to business.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you, beginning, if you're sort of fresh on this journey, as it always is what is your goal here? So if you're creating, what is it you're wanting to do with that? Because it's a very different thing to say, I want to publish, I want to make money, I want to be seen by all of these different people, versus I just want to tell my story. Because if you're just telling a story, if you're just putting books out into the world and you're happy with that and you don't want to really make money with it, then do that. Like there's nothing to kind of stop you putting that stuff out there. If you are in the business of looking at in some way of generating money, then that really is kind of when you start to think of yourself as a business. And so that question might be very, very early on in your journey. That might be kind of as you start out, you're like, right, I'm in this. I've seen people write books. I've seen people make money. And so I want to write a book to make money, in which case that's where your business journey starts. It doesn't mean you have to register anything at that point. It just means you have to start thinking business mindedly because that is the approach you are taking. Versus if it's a hobby, if it's a thing that you just want to tell and you're not, again, not worried about recouping costs or anything like that, and it's just literally for the pure enjoyment of it, then I would argue you don't need to worry about the business at that point. Just focus on the creativity and the passion. Sound fair so far?
Yeah, I would agree with you. The only thing I would say is that that like a diagnosis, you have the illness before you're diagnosed.
Yes.
So like you're a business before you're a business, I would say, kind of that, like to add on what you said. And also I would just say that I think sometimes the word hobby can be a little bit like almost
reductive.
Yeah. Because there are some people 100% that do it as a hobby and they love it and that's great, and there are some people that 100% do it as a business and they love it and it's great. And then you also have like people that are writers that are incredibly serious about their craft and what they're doing, but they have no interest in like being a business, because you know, like being self-employed or running your own business is not for everyone. Like I think I promise I do think
I hear it.
yeah, me too, it's squeaky. I think because like the idea of indie publishing and stuff is still relatively new, especially in kind of like the more like mainstream as it's kind of eking. A lot of people don't consider creativity as a business. A lot of people, you know, it used to be like you were a writer and the publishers would be the business. So there are some people that I think it doesn't sit with them to be a business, but they want to be a writer. And you absolutely can do that. I think that's important, just because like when it's just the word hobby sometimes, like, oh, you're a hobbyist writer, you know what I mean?
I get what you mean. You don't really want to play down the actual sort of like passionate part of what
no,
it is that
but
you do.
I mean, again, there are some people 100% that do it as a hobby.
Oh yeah, and this is kind of, I think, you know,
it's the spectrum.
Yeah, there's the spectrum part of it, but I think with so many of the questions that we'll be going through in this podcast, like it's all going to start with why are you doing it? It's all going to start with what is it you want to get out of it, and it's also going to, each one is going to be very, very individualistic, because as I say, if you know from the beginning you're pursuing this as a business, then treat it, you can from that point treat it like a business. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to put like structures in place while you're like writing and before you've spent like a penny or anything else like that. But you might find that in the beginning, if you buy a software like Scrivener to write your book, or like Plotter to sort of plan your book, then you might want to kind of like just keep a record of that, and again begin treating that like the business it is. Again, if you're not bothered about making money, then you don't have to do that straight away. It's probably worth kind of like touching on my journey to seeing this as a business, because like I started 2014, sort of moving seriously. 2015, I published my first book, and I don't believe I actually got my first bank account and registered properly as a business until maybe 2016. I think it's 2016. I sort of got a separate bank account and started looking into that once money actually started coming in. And for me, it was very much that point of like, oh, I'm making money from this. I should probably make this official before I go to prison.
Yeah.
Which I think is very, very similar to a lot of people's journeys that I hear. Because depending on, again, sort of territorial advice will differ, but realistically, if you start making money through a service that you're providing, whether that's entertainment or whatever, you technically are a business in the eyes of the law, and so you should be starting to put business practices in place.
Yeah,
that is a very grey area.
At the very least, putting some money aside to pay your tax.
Yeah,
because they are sticklers about that.
Yeah, and it is a pretty grey area at that point. So the minute that you can kind of think, oh, should I be a business, is probably when you should be a business. But that was my journey, and then like I started off, and this will be UK laws. I started off as a sole trader. Because it was just myself and I was my business and everything else like that. And then when I got to, say it wasn't until 2021, last year. It might have been 2020. It was 2020 that I became a limited company. And I won't go too heavy into the specifics of this, but essentially my distinction on this is sole trader, you are your business. So any money that comes in is yours to play with. Like there's no one else responsible for your business. Which does also mean that if you get into any financial trouble, any financial debt, anything else like that, that everything that you own personal wise is liable to kind of like recompense any costs that you can't get. So if you've got a mortgage, if you've got a car, if you've got any of that, like that is liable to be caught back if you find yourself in debt. Which sounds scary, and obviously like most people hopefully won't find themselves in that position. But it does also then mean that you're in total control when you're not responsible to anyone else for your business. The reason I switched to a limited company in 2020 was because I was looking at expansion. I spoke to an accountant about some of what my goals were, because my goals have changed from just writing my own books to starting a business and bringing on staff and kind of growing in that regard. And so a limited company allowed me to do that under sort of like legal structures and things. And also one of the big bonuses about being a limited company is that if there are any sort of problems with the business, you yourself as an entity are removed from your business. So everything that I do is through mostly Devil's Rock Publishing Limited, which means that my house, my car, like my son cannot be taken to recompense anything. And again, that's not like to say that that's going to happen, but it's always nice to kind of like have that safety if you need it.
It definitely won't happen unless you register your son as a business asset.
One day. I think I've got to wait a few years though.
Yeah.
I'm training him.
Yeah, also like he's still in the cute phase now. Wait till he hits 12, then register him.
Right, let me write that down. 12. But yeah, so that's kind of like a very, very top level. And again, if this is kind of your first experience looking into business stuff, like some of this sounds complicated, but I promise you, like it doesn't need to be complicated. It's just sort of like getting familiar with some of the vernacular. But I will say one of the things that I've learned about business over the years is it only needs to be as complicated or as simple as you need it to be for what you need it to do. So I think there's this real perception. I've definitely sort of had conversations with you about this, just like over the years and stuff. But like, there's a real perception with business where it's just kind of like very educational, higher up thing of like people in the business suits, and like you have to adhere to very particular structures to do anything. And that's just not the case. Your business could be as simple as you have a couple of tools, you have Word, you have, again, Plotter, Grammarly, whatever that is. You've got some way to track your finances. You've got some way to pay your taxes, and that's it. Like that could be your business. When you want to add in things like, marketing systems, marketing softwares and sheets and things like that, it's totally up to you. Everything it's your business, that everything that you put in, everything that is built should be built and used to serve what your goal is, what it is that your business is trying to achieve. So again, if it's as simple as I want to make money with my books, everything that you do, how is this contributing to making money with
Yeah.
the books? And that can be, you know, if you're tracking finances, anything with an Excel spreadsheet to programs like Zero, which are like obviously like pay per month and they're a bit more sort of expansive and things.
Yeah, obviously, Sam says having literally only incorporated like a week and a half ago because she's trying to find a way to sustainably make an income to replace her disability benefits. And she's nodding and smiling at everything Dan says as if she knows what he's talking about and she hasn't got a fucking clue.
But this is perfect. And this is why you're like co-hosting, because you're my barometer for this stuff. Because obviously, like, I've been in this industry for a while. And so it's really, really helpful for me to know when I've kind of like gone past that line. So
Yeah, you
stop
can
me
see
if,
it around the eyes.
yeah,
It's been in it a while.
okay.
A bit tired.
But yeah, like my own personal finances, I track primarily through Excel spreadsheets. I've spoken with my accountant about the way that it works. He's helping me set it up in a way that it works. It's very, very sort of basic in the sense of, well, I won't go deep into that. But it's basic because I am a person who doesn't want to overcomplicate my finances because I don't see why I should. Like, if my finances are there for two functions really: to tell me if I'm making money and to make sure that I pay any tax to the government. Those are the two things that I do with my finances. And then obviously like buy Lamborghinis and things.
Of course.
Of course, of course. So again, like all of that, whatever you put in, just make sure it serves the system that you are building, the business you are building. On that notion, where is it? I had a note down. Oh yeah, we won't go to the Notion rabbit hole. Yeah, there we go. The other thing as well, again, this totally depends on your goal, is one very, very useful thing that I've learned over the years of listening to business podcasts, like learning all my own experience. Bear with me 2 seconds. My son would like something.
Okay. So one thing he's learned is that it's really important to make sure that when you're eating peanut M&Ms, number one, you don't have a peanut allergy because that would be moot to do that. You get yourself very ill. And secondly, to make sure you remove the orange ones just in case they do taste like chocolate orange, which is the worst. Carry on.
Chocolate orange is amazing.
No, it's not. It's the devil. Please continue.
Wow. Thanks for filling. Yeah, so one of the biggest sort of mindset shifts and things that I found very, very useful in my businesses and the places I used to work and like some of the things I'm doing now is good business practice means that you should build a business that should outlast you as an individual. Very difficult. So again, this comes down to your goals. So if all you'd like to do is, well, actually it kind of works in this regard. You can tell I'm thinking out loud on this one.
Yeah.
But what that essentially means is that the way that you build a business should be able to be run by anyone. You should be able to like bring someone in and go, this is how this works. This is how this links to this. Go. And you should be able to step yourself out. Obviously when
business
you're
or the product.
Huh?
Because I would hate it if someone could come step into my business and do what I'm doing.
Well, no. So here's kind of like where I'm getting to that point. So obviously, if you are early on in your writing journey and you're creating and you don't have the money to like bring someone else in, that's very different. But still, like keeping in mind, keeping those systems simple enough and working together enough that someone could step in. And when I say step in on that regard, like obviously as creatives, we will likely not give up the creativity in our own business. But like, isn't the dream to be able to write and to have someone else handle your finances, someone else handle your marketing, someone else handle like your publishing and everything else like that? Wouldn't you just love to just create, give that to people and then them deal with stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the dream for me is to live in like kind of like a post-apocalyptic world where there's not a lot of people, but like it's far enough along that people are no longer like striving for survival. Like we've started to like value art and stuff again. But like, you know, there's a lot less people out there. It's a lot less noise. But I understand that that's not necessarily achievable. So yeah, what you said sounds nice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I do on that note though, like that does sound amazing to me.
Right. Just saying.
Just
the problem is we all think that. So for fuck's sake, we'd be post-apocalyptic just in the same way.
Yeah.
People are okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so as you're building your business, as you're building your systems, it's just something like worth keeping in mind. Because again, if you can get to the point where you're making enough money that you can just hire someone and be like, deal with my finances, like give them a system that is easy to follow. If you've got your marketing, you've got that set out enough that you can follow it, and then you can just say to someone, here you go, here's what I do for marketing, follow that. And so have that in mind as you're growing and trying to treat this as a business, because I've definitely found again over the years that like it's benefited me playing every part in my business, because it means that when I do hand that out, it means that I kind of like have an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, broadly speaking, a good business should be built to outlast the individual.
Yeah.
It's fairly good practice. The other part of that as well, when you get to a point when you start to treat or start to, you know, think of your business as a business, you'll find as well that like you begin to approach your work slightly differently and a bit more, I don't like the word professionally, but I guess with a bit more professionalism. So for some people, for some people who, when they, you know, suddenly go, right, I'm again, like it's when your goal becomes, I'm going to make money, I need to do this. You suddenly realize the benefits of booking in time to actually sit down and write, you know, prioritizing certain projects, and just you see things slightly differently versus like, oh, I'm going to create a bit over here, I'm going to create a bit over here, I'm going to make this thing again, like
Feel attacked.
never to attack, Sam. Never to attack.
I don't know if I believe that, being
But yeah.
mental and all.
But yeah, putting on your business hat, it does come with a couple of shifts in how you then approach and look at certain things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be like daily on the schedule, but it's just sort of a bit more fore planning and looking at like sticking to deadlines and things like that to make your business move forward. Yeah, I think that kind of broadly covers a lot of my top parts on this. Like we will dig deeper into stuff as we approach more business questions as this grows and this goes on.
I mean, you'll probably dig deeper. I'll sit and listen and learn
and share your experiences.
Sure.
You're a business now.
Yeah, legally.
But yeah, I'll kind of like leave it at that. Broadly speaking, just the answer to when do I start my author business? Who are you? What is your goal? Where are you going with it? And as I say, like for me, it kind of becomes the moment I'm like, all right, I'm treating this as a business, and I start to generate income. Because once again, you could say like, I'm going to do this to make money. But if you spend 6, 12, 18 months working on that first book, not necessarily generating income, you probably don't want to start officially like your business then, like be in the business mind, but you won't necessarily want to put all the sort of mechanisms in gear.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then just one extra point on here, I put like the main things for me that made me feel like I started my business were, number one, registering with Companies House and HMRC. Again, this is very UK focused. And opening a separate bank account. And the separate bank account for me was a really big deal, because it was that moment, like for whatever reason, like I registered the company, I was like, oh, that's easy. And then it was like, bank account, oh, I have to open a bank account. Because the minute you start thinking of like juggling money and things, it gets a little bit more real, I guess. And you know, business accounts do come with monthly expenses in terms of like, so my business account is £5 a month to run, and then obviously like I make enough to cover that back and things.
I hope so.
Oh yeah, you'd hope so. Like at least a £5.
Oh,
I've been doing this for a few years now.
Yeah. I'd be so sad for you if you weren't making back your costs.
I'm covering my costs. My very basic costs. So yeah, those are kind of like the two big things that really kicked it off for me, at least mentally, to get rolling. And then yeah, I've got you know, personally for me, I use Notion for a lot of things when it comes to marketing and publishing and notes and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole other episode. We can definitely dive into some things. Have I broadly covered things on your side? Can you think of anything else that might want to be chipped in?
I mean, can I think of anything else to add to business?
Yes.
It begins with B, and you spell it bus-I-ness. Took me a long time to figure that one out. I don't know. Like I still, like, yes, I legally registered and I opened a bank account. My business hasn't officially launched until I think it's the 3rd of November. But I mean, for me, it was simply a way that I can start to make money in a legal and moral way, and like slowly replace like my disability benefits and all that kind of thing. So I'm putting the control of my life back into my hands. So I mean, I really feel like I am as unqualified as they come to kind of add to this, and I don't want to,
Yeah.
start to just kind of riff on something that I have zero experience in. I don't think that is helpful to anyone. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Did it all make sense? Broadly
sure.
speaking. As confidence. Boss. Well, I think I mean, I think that kind of again like covers all the bits and pieces that I've got on my list. If people have any particular questions, feel free to reach out to us at Activated Authors, and we'll cover that. And yeah, we'll definitely be diving into some more of these in a bit more detail in future episodes. But again, I don't want to get too bogged down on like some of this stuff because there are so many rabbit holes that you can go down.
Yeah, I
And
don't even know where they are, but I'm sure there's many.
yeah, 1,000. And that brings us to the end. So we haven't got anything to promote at the minute. The 50k writing camp, as this launches, will officially be like starting tomorrow, the 1st of November. So that's all kicking off and going on. We had our welcome on last night, Wednesday.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's all racing. But there will definitely be some news upcoming soon because we've got a chat after this recording, and I've got some ideas. So be prepared for that.
Oh God.
Always fun.
No, I've got ideas is always dangerous.
Oh,
I feel
right.
like I feel like this is you getting back at me.
Mwah.
I've got an idea. Okay.
Oh yeah. So we will round up there and say a massive thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate you and the time you choose to spend with us each and every week. And as always, if you're looking to level up your writing and activate your author career, head on over to www.activatedauthors.com to find out all about our community, our resources, and everything else we've got going on. One more time for myself and Sam. We will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
energy.